Imagine a child who is attending a mandatory school assembly where the guest speaker will be talking about the importance of staying sober. The child listens as the speaker tells the students the risks involved in abusing alcohol and abusing drugs. Then the speaker suggests one way of staying sober is to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. The child now feels uncomfortable because Christianity is not his religion. He looks around to other students to see how they are reacting. He wonders if that is the only way to stay sober. He wonders if he is an outcast for not believing in Jesus Christ. He leaves the assembly feeling uneasy and upset. The American Civil Liberties Union of Nebraska recently sent a letter to all public schools in Nebraska addressing this very issue. Being a college student, you may not currently have a child attending school, a public school in Nebraska. However, it is possible in the near future you may. I'm a mother of 2 children who currently attend public school in Nebraska. That being said, I'm very interested in the content of school assemblies. The ACLU believes the public schools are in violation of the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States because the assembly was paid for with tax money, attendance was mandatory, and the guest speakers specifically stated their religious views. Now let's address the separation of church and state as it applies to the use of tax money, mandatory attendance of school events, and religious beliefs. First, let's talk about the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment and how it applies to the use of tax money. The Establishment Clause keeps the U.S. government from establishing an official religion or preferring one religion over another, or even preferring religion over non-religion. Public schools are funded by state government. The state government uses taxpayers' money to fund public schools. So as stated in the letter the ACLU sent to Nebraska Public Schools on September 15, 2010, the use of tax money to pay for a speaker to come to a public school and encourage students to believe in a certain religion would be a violation of the Establishment Clause. The U.S. Supreme Court has ruled against the use of government funds to promote religious beliefs on several occasions. One such occasion is the case of Lemon versus Rhode Island, 1971. The case involved the state providing financial support to non-public schools, specifically religious schools. The court ruled unanimously that it was a clear violation of the Establishment Clause. The use of taxpayer money to fund religious-based speeches in a public school may be in violation of the Establishment Clause. Now that we have talked about the use of tax money, we will discuss the mandatory attendance. Since attendance to the assembly was mandatory and religious views were presented as part of the assembly, it may be in violation of the Establishment Clause. The assembly was held at a public school during normal school hours. Attendance was not optional. As stated in the letter sent by the ACLU on September 15, 2010, because the assembly was not optional and it occurred during the normal school hours, the ACLU considers the school to be in violation of the Establishment Clause. The Supreme Court has ruled against such practices in the past. One such ruling is the case of Lee versus Wiseman, 1992. In this case, the court ruled that the Establishment Clause forbids the government from coercing people into participating in a religious activity. Mandatory attendance to assembly where religion is being discussed may be in violation of the Establishment Clause. Now that we have looked at the mandatory attendance, let's look at the speakers themselves. 2 speakers were specifically named named as endorsing religion while giving speeches on topics that were considered appropriate. The first speaker who was named was Keith Becker of the Todd Becker Foundation. Keith speaks about alcohol abuse and drinking while driving. Keith's brother Todd was killed in an alcohol-related accident on February 6, 2005. Todd was 18 years old at the time of his death. According to an article by Margaret Reist that appeared in the Lincoln Journal-Star on September 15, 2010, Keith uses Bible scripture to better illustrate the story of Todd's choices. The second speaker who was named was Ron Brown. Ron Brown is an assistant football coach at the University of Nebraska, as well as an inspirational speaker and a devoted Christian. In the same article by Margaret Reese that appeared in the Lincoln Journal-Star on September 15, 2010, Ron Brown is quoted as saying, "As a citizen of the United States, as a person who can freely disclose what he believes to be the truth, I have not only the right, but the responsibility to tell kids what I believe." Keith Becker and Ron Brown were both cited in the letter from the ACLU as presenting explicit religious messages in their presentation, which if true, is in violation of the Establishment Clause. Now that we have discussed the use of tax money, mandatory attendance, and religious beliefs of the speakers, we can wrap things up. The ACLU of Nebraska sent a letter to Nebraska Public Schools stating that they believed some Nebraska public schools to be in violation of the Establishment Clause because they used taxpayer money to pay for assemblies that were mandatory, and the speakers shared their religious beliefs. So I ask you, has the Establishment Clause been violated by the two speakers named in the letter as the ACLU suggests? Or were the speakers just trying to use their personal beliefs to better illustrate a point? I hope I have given you enough information to decide.